The kitchen was chaos incarnate. Flames leapt from gas stoves, sending flickers of orange across polished steel counters. Steam rose in thick, curling ribbons, carrying the pungent, almost intoxicating scent of garlic sizzling in olive oil, butter browning delicately in copper pans, and onions caramelizing to golden perfection. Pots clanged as if they had lives of their own, and knives chopped relentlessly, keeping pace with the rhythm of the shouting chefs. Every surface gleamed under the bright overhead lights, every movement calculated, precise, like an intricate ballet only the experienced could follow. Into this storm of heat and noise stepped a figure so small she could have been mistaken for a shadow at first glance. Lila, only 3 years old, entered the restaurant kitchen, carrying a wooden spoon far too large for her hands, her simple dress patched at the hem, and an oversized apron that drooped over her tiny shoulders. Her hair, slightly tousled, framed a face that seemed far too serious for someone her age, yet her eyes, dark and unwavering, held something impossible to ignore, a fire of quiet determination that refused to be intimidated. The chefs immediately noticed her. One, a broad-shouldered man with a streak of sauce across his cheek, threw back his head and laughed, the sound booming and cruel. "What is this? A toddler playing at cooking?" His words reverberated against the stainless steel walls. Others joined, their laughter sharp and derisive. "Step aside, kid. Real chefs work here, not children pretending." Lila's small chest rose and fell rapidly. Her lips trembled as if she were about to speak, but no sound came. The room seemed to swell with mockery, heavy and suffocating, pressing her tiny body against the cool tile floor. Most children would have fled, tears already forming, but Lila was no ordinary child. Cooking was in her blood. She could taste the harmony of ingredients with her fingertips. She could feel textures, colors, and flavors mingling in her imagination before ever touching a single item. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. Her hands hovered over the ingredients with a grace that contradicted her age, carefully, deliberately, as if she had been born knowing the steps. She picked up a small bunch of basil, crushed it gently, letting its aroma fill the air. A slice of ripe tomato followed, laid precisely on the cutting board, then a dash of salt, a few drops of olive oil. Each motion was purposeful, quieting the chaos around her in a strange, magnetic way. The chef's laughter began to falter as they noticed her composure. One of them, a stern woman with a sharp knife in hand, frowned. Her curiosity piqued despite herself. "Is she actually cooking?" she muttered. Lila stirred the mixture in her bowl with delicate, confident motions. Steam rose, carrying a scent that seemed to silence even the loudest clanging pots. The smell was subtle, yet intoxicating, a combination of sweetness and earthiness that made stomachs rumble involuntarily. Each movement she made was instinctive, precise, like watching a master choreograph a dance in real time. Finally, she plated the dish. It was simple, elegant, unassuming, but there was an almost magical aura about it. The aroma wafted through the room, penetrating every corner, every nose. One chef, skeptical and still snickering, picked up a fork and tasted it. He paused. Confusion crossed his face, then awe. The flavor was impossible, perfect, complex yet harmonious, bold yet delicate, balanced in a way that no adult in that kitchen could replicate. A hush fell. The laughter evaporated, replaced by stunned silence. The chefs exchanged incredulous glances, heads tilted, knives lowered, mouths agape. The tiny girl, standing barely at counter height, had done what none of them could. She had commanded the kitchen, not with force, not with words, but with sheer, undeniable talent. Lila's lips curved into a faint, shy smile. She had done what she came to do. She had proven, without a single argument, that greatness could come in the smallest of packages. And then the kitchen door swung open. A shadow fell across the floor, stretching into the room. A figure stood in the doorway, tall and still, observing everything with a calm intensity that made the room seem smaller, quieter. Whoever this was, every head turned instantly, not because of the child, not because of the dish, but because of the presence in the doorway. The stranger's gaze fell on Lila. Something in his eyes flickered. Recognition, curiosity, perhaps even awe. For the first time that day, she felt the weight of the world shift slightly, as though this person could see her not as a child, but as an artist, as someone destined for more. The chefs, frozen, could only watch as the tension crackled between the girl and the man. Something unspoken passed in that glance, a silent acknowledgement that this kitchen, this day, would never be the same again. The man in the doorway did not move forward immediately. He simply stood there, tall and composed, as if the chaos of the kitchen, flames, steam, clattering utensils and stunned chefs, were nothing more than a background hum to his observation. His eyes never left Lila, the tiny girl whose fingers had just transformed raw ingredients into a masterpiece that silenced a room of seasoned professionals. Finally, he stepped inside, each movement deliberate, unhurried. The kitchen felt impossibly still around him, as if his presence demanded attention even without a word. Lila's eyes flicked up, curious yet cautious. Something in him felt different. He did not laugh. He did not scold. He simply watched, taking in every detail, the concentration in her tiny brow, the careful way she wiped her hands, the proud yet understated lift of her chin as she awaited judgment. He approached slowly, kneeling to bring his eyes level with hers. "Remarkable," he said softly, almost reverently. His voice was warm, steady, and carried an authority without arrogance. The chefs blinked in disbelief, unsure whether to be angry or embarrassed. Who are you?" one of the senior chefs finally demanded, clearing his throat. His pride stung. This man seemed to see more than just a child in the kitchen. The stranger smiled faintly. "Someone who recognizes talent," he said, "even when it comes in the smallest of packages." He turned his gaze back to Lila. "What's your name, little chef?" "Lila," she whispered, her voice barely audible, tinged with both shyness and pride. "Lila," he repeated, savoring the sound as though it had weight. "You have a gift, a rare one. May I watch you work for a moment longer?" Something in his tone made her relax. No ridicule, no mocking tone, just curiosity and appreciation. For the first time that day, someone saw her as more than a child intruding on an adult world. Lila nodded, her small lips forming a determined smile. He introduced himself as Arthur, a widowed father recently relocated to the city. His presence had a quiet gravity, like someone who had seen hardship yet still held on to hope. He explained that he had a young son, not much older than Lila, and that he had been searching for someone who could inspire his child, someone who understood the power of passion and creativity. Lila listened, fascinated. She did not yet understand fully what this man's world was, but she sensed something extraordinary. She felt a connection she could not articulate, a bridge between her small, lonely world and something bigger, something full of possibility. Arthur's gaze did not waver. "You remind me of someone," he said softly, almost to himself. Then he turned back to her. "You've created something here that even seasoned chefs could not replicate. That's extraordinary. Do you like to cook often?" Lila nodded eagerly, her small hands wringing together. I like to make food that makes people happy," she admitted, "even when they don't think I can." Her words were simple, yet their meaning resonated in the cavernous kitchen. Arthur crouched slightly, his face level with hers. "Then I think we should see what else you can do, together." His tone was gentle, inviting trust without forcing it. He did not offer promises or make grandiose claims. He simply acknowledged her talent and, in doing so, validated her very existence in a way the adults around her never had. The chefs exchanged uneasy glances. Some were still skeptical, but the room had shifted. The dynamic of the kitchen had changed. Lila was no longer merely a child in an apron. She was a force, recognized and silently validated by someone who understood what she could become. As Arthur began asking about her favorite dishes, her inspirations, the flavors she loved most, Lila's small frame straightened with pride. Each word she spoke carried confidence now, a reflection of the trust and recognition she had been given. She spoke about textures, tastes, and even the way the plate should look when served. The man listened, genuinely captivated, occasionally nodding with quiet admiration. Then Arthur stood, brushing the faint smudge of dust from his jacket. "I think your gift is too important to remain hidden in this kitchen," he said, glancing around at the still quiet chefs. "You have the power to inspire not just one or two, but many. I'd like to help you share it, if you'll let me." Lila looked from him to the bewildered chefs and back again. The world suddenly seemed bigger, full of possibility. For the first time, she felt a hand reaching out to guide her, not control her. She nodded once, decisively. Arthur smiled, a quiet, relieved smile, as if he had discovered a treasure he didn't know he was searching for. He extended his hand. "Shall we begin?" Lila took it, tiny fingers curling around his larger ones, and in that moment, a partnership was silently forged, one that promised discovery, growth, and challenges neither of them could yet foresee. But just as the first connection was made, a shadow appeared outside the kitchen window, a figure from Lila's past, unnoticed until now. Someone who would test not only her skill but her courage, and challenge everything she had just begun to believe about herself. The shadow outside the kitchen window had gone unnoticed until now, but its presence immediately shifted the air in the room. A tall man, his face partially obscured by a cap, lingered just beyond the glass, his gaze fixed on Lila. He did not move, but the intensity in his eyes was enough to make Arthur tense. Something about him felt familiar, though neither of them could place it yet. Inside the kitchen, the bustling noise had returned, though subdued, as if the staff were hesitant to resume normal activity with the tension in the air. Lila, unaware of the figure outside, turned back to her ingredients, but the earlier confidence in her movements was now tinged with caution. The warmth of Arthur's encouragement still lingered, yet she could feel the presence of judgment, unspoken but palpable, creeping over her small frame. Arthur's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, grounding her. "Stay focused, Lila," he said softly. "No one can take away what you've already created." His eyes scanned the kitchen and then the window. "But some people, they might try." The man outside finally moved, disappearing from view, but the unease remained. Lila's instincts, sharp despite her age, told her something was coming, a challenge that would test her in ways she had never imagined. The next day, Arthur took Lila to a small private corner of the restaurant, away from the main kitchen. "I want to see what you can do with more freedom," he explained. "I'll help you, but you'll also need to face the adults who doubt you, and perhaps even yourself." Lila nodded, a mix of excitement and fear in her wide eyes. She wanted to prove herself, to show that age and size were irrelevant in the face of talent, but deep inside, she also felt the pressure of expectations, a weight she had never carried before. The challenge began simply: prepare a dish entirely from scratch, using only the ingredients Arthur provided. But as she worked, the kitchen staff, now curious and skeptical, started to watch. Some leaned against counters, arms crossed, whispering doubts. "She's good, yes, but can she handle real pressure?" one chef muttered. Another shook his head, muttering about rules and experience. Lila's small hands trembled slightly as she chopped vegetables and stirred sauces, her brow furrowed in concentration. Every sound in the kitchen seemed magnified, the hiss of the pan, the clatter of spoons, the murmur of doubt. She felt the eyes of the adults pressing down on her, measuring her every move. Arthur knelt beside her again. "Remember what you know," he said. "Trust your instincts. You've never failed before when you followed your heart. Don't let their voices drown out yours." But just as she began to regain her rhythm, the oven door slammed open behind her. The tall man from the window stepped inside, revealing himself fully now, a renowned chef from the restaurant's main kitchen, known for his exacting standards and intolerance for mistakes. His eyes, sharp and critical, landed on Lila. "You don't belong here," he said, voice low but edged with menace. "This is not a playground. Leave the cooking to the professionals." The kitchen fell silent again, everyone frozen in anticipation. Lila's heart pounded in her chest, her hands stilling over the sauce she was stirring. The weight of the words threatened to crush her, but a flicker of resolve passed across her tiny face. She remembered the first dish she had made, the way her flavors had captured even skeptical chefs' attention. She could do this. Arthur stepped forward. "She is exactly where she belongs," he said firmly, "and she will show you that talent is not measured by age but by heart, skill, and courage." The man laughed coldly, clearly unconvinced. "We'll see if the girl can survive this kitchen," he said, before turning away to let her continue. But his words hung in the air, a challenge that Lila could not ignore. For the first time, she realized that cooking was not only about creating flavors, it was about facing judgment, criticism, and doubt. Every slice, every stir, every sprinkle mattered more than ever. The kitchen became a battlefield, with her small frame in the center wielding nothing but a wooden spoon, a handful of ingredients, and an unwavering belief in her own skill. By the time the dish was plated, the tension had reached its peak. Lila stepped back, chest heaving, as the chef circled the counter. The renowned chef leaned over and took a cautious bite. Silence followed. Then, a subtle shift, the faintest nod of acknowledgement. Lila had met the challenge. She had faced her first real test, and survived. But just as relief washed over her, Arthur's gaze met hers with a warning. "This is only the beginning," he whispered. "There are bigger challenges coming. People who will not simply test your skill, but your spirit." The following days in the kitchen were nothing short of exhausting. Lila woke each morning with her tiny apron folded neatly over her shoulders, eyes bright but already heavy with anticipation. Every day brought new challenges, and while her skill was undeniable, the environment proved relentless. Some chefs remained skeptical, whispering doubts behind her back. Their eyes, sharp with judgment, followed her every movement, measuring, evaluating, and sometimes mocking. One morning, Arthur brought her into the main kitchen for a special task, preparing a dessert that would be presented to the restaurant's board of investors. Lila's excitement was tempered by nerves. This was a step beyond the small victories she had already achieved. The stakes were higher, and the audience far more intimidating. The ingredients were laid before her: sugar, chocolate, cream, fruits carefully sliced and arranged, and the kitchen staff crowded in, curious to see if the girl who had astonished them once could perform again. Lila's small hands shook slightly as she picked up her first utensil. She remembered Arthur's advice: trust yourself, follow your instincts. She began to work, measuring precisely, stirring gently, arranging with care. But tension built quickly. One of the sous chefs, a man notorious for his short temper, leaned over and muttered, "Careful, kid, don't make a mess." His words, meant to intimidate, caused Lila's hand to slip slightly, scattering a small heap of sugar onto the counter. Panic threatened to overtake her. For a moment she imagined the laughter returning, imagined the disbelief in the adult's eyes. Arthur knelt beside her, whispering encouragement. "It's okay. Mistakes are part of learning. Keep going." He offered a small smile, and slowly Lila's confidence returned. Her hands steadied, her focus sharpened, and she resumed the delicate movements that made her creations extraordinary. Just as she was regaining momentum, the head chef, still skeptical and unyielding, approached with a frown. "This isn't just about taste," he said, voice cutting. "Presentation matters. You're a child. Do you understand that?" His words stung, not for their truth, but for the doubt they carried. Lila's heart pounded, a mix of fear and determination surging through her. With trembling fingers, she continued. Each ingredient was meticulously placed, each motion deliberate. Slowly, her creation began to take shape, a delicate balance of color, texture, and aroma. The kitchen watched silently, some leaning forward, others standing stiffly with arms crossed, their previous skepticism turning into cautious curiosity. Finally, the dish was complete. Lila stepped back, her tiny chest heaving. She looked at the dessert, and despite the trembling nerves, she felt pride swell inside her. It was perfect, not flawless, but alive with intent, creativity, and the unmistakable mark of her talent. Arthur gave a small nod of approval, and together they presented the dessert to the board. The first bites were tentative, cautious. Then, something extraordinary happened. The investors' expressions shifted, surprise and admiration spreading across their faces. Whispers of astonishment filled the room. Lila's dessert had spoken louder than any words, a silent yet powerful testimony to her ability. But victory was short-lived. Outside the kitchen, the shadow from before had returned. A rival chef, infamous for discrediting young talent, had heard rumors of the child prodigy and arrived with a determination to undermine her. He lingered at the entrance, eyes scanning, calculating, waiting for the moment to strike. Back in the kitchen, some staff members, unsettled by Lila's growing acclaim, began to question her methods. "She's too young to handle real pressure," one murmured. Another added, "She doesn't understand teamwork. She works alone, ignoring instructions." Their doubt seeped into the atmosphere, invisible but palpable, pressing against Lila from all sides. Lila felt it, the whispers, the stares, the skepticism. Her hands shook once more, and a small tear escaped, quickly brushed away. She had to fight not just for her dish, but for her confidence, for her place in this world that was too big and too loud for a 3-year-old. Arthur noticed, kneeling beside her again. "Don't let them get inside your head," he said firmly. "Your gift is yours. Let them doubt all they want. You know the truth. Trust that." His words were steady, a lifeline in a storm. With renewed focus, Lila faced the plate once more, adding a final touch, a sprinkle of powdered sugar, arranged perfectly like tiny snowflakes. It was delicate, intentional, and beautiful. She stepped back, holding her breath, as the kitchen waited in tense anticipation. The rival chef moved closer, his expression cold and calculating. He would challenge her. He would try to break her. But for the first time, Lila realized something crucial. It was not just her skill that mattered. It was her courage, her heart, and her unwavering belief in herself. And as the shadow loomed closer, she understood that her greatest challenge was not the heat of the ovens, the sharpness of knives, or even the scrutiny of adults, but the fear within herself. The kitchen seemed to hold its breath as the rival chef stepped closer. His gaze, sharp and critical, was locked on Lila, a silent challenge flashing in his eyes. The other chefs moved back slightly, sensing the tension escalating. Arthur stayed at her side, his presence a quiet anchor, but even he could feel the weight of the impending confrontation pressing down. 3 years old, the rival chef said, voice low but cutting. "And you think you belong here?" He reached out, pointing at her carefully plated dessert. "This is not a child's world. You're too small, too inexperienced. You don't understand technique, precision, discipline." Lila's small hands trembled as she gripped her wooden spoon. Her heart pounded, but beneath the fear, something stirred. An unshakable determination she hadn't fully realized until now. This was not just about proving herself to others, it was about proving to herself that she had the strength, the talent, and the courage to follow her heart. Arthur knelt beside her, whispering, "Trust yourself, Lila. You know your flavors, your instincts, your heart. Don't let him shake that." His words seemed to echo inside her like a melody she had always known but had never fully heard. For a moment, Lila hesitated. Her mind raced with memories of past failures, the sneers of strangers, the doubts whispered by those who claimed to know better. And then she remembered the first dish she had made, the one that had silenced the entire kitchen, the one that had earned Arthur's quiet admiration. She remembered the feeling of triumph, not from others' approval, but from the simple, pure act of creating something that reflected her soul. Slowly, deliberately, she began to work again. Her movements were more confident, more precise, more deliberate. Every slice, every sprinkle, every stir carried intention. The rival chef leaned closer, his frown deepening, expecting imperfection, expecting failure. But the dish took on a new life under Lila's hands. It was no longer just dessert, it was a statement, a declaration that talent could not be measured by age, nor spirit by size. As she finished, she added a final touch. A delicate swirl of sauce, placed just so, creating an almost invisible harmony on the plate. She stepped back, chest heaving, eyes bright and unwavering. Silence fell over the kitchen. The rival chef bent down, tasting the dish with careful, meticulous attention. His expression, initially skeptical, softened. He paused, then looked up at Lila with something akin to disbelief. For the first time, he saw not a child, but a chef in the making, a prodigy whose intuition and creativity defied the rigid rules he had long lived by. This is extraordinary, he admitted quietly, almost reluctantly. I've tasted desserts from chefs twice your age, and never like this. His words were heavy with a mixture of awe and grudging respect. Arthur smiled, proud but not surprised. He reached out and gently lifted Lila's small hand. Do you see, Lila? This is what happens when you trust yourself. When you let your heart guide your hands, nothing can stop you. For the first time, Lila allowed herself to feel the weight of her achievement, not as validation from others, but as recognition of her own courage, skill, and resilience. She realized that the kitchen, the criticism, even the rival chef's doubts, had been a test of something far deeper than technique. They had tested her spirit. Then, unexpectedly, the rival chef extended his hand. I was wrong, he said. You belong here more than I ever could have imagined. His voice softened, carrying a quiet humility that caught everyone in the kitchen off guard. Lila looked at him, unsure if she should trust the sudden change, but something in his tone rang true. Arthur's eyes met hers, and without words he conveyed a truth that resonated through every fiber of her being. This was only the beginning. The challenges she had faced were small compared to what awaited, but she had proven to herself that she had the courage, creativity, and heart to face them. Lila smiled, a small but radiant expression, and felt a surge of confidence unlike anything she had known. She understood now that talent alone was not enough. Bravery, resilience, and the willingness to trust herself were equally essential. And just as the kitchen began to buzz with renewed energy, the shadow from the past, someone who had quietly observed Lila from afar, emerged from the doorway. A figure who knew secrets about her family, her origins, and the hidden depths of her abilities. Their presence promised to reveal truths that would change everything Lila thought she knew about herself, her talent, and the world around her. The kitchen was electrified with anticipation. Word had spread through the restaurant. The child prodigy Lila had captured the attention of every chef, every investor, and now everyone wanted to witness her next creation. But the atmosphere was tense, thick with expectation, envy, and the shadow of doubt that had lingered since her first step into the kitchen. The mysterious figure who had watched from afar now stepped fully into the room, a woman with a sharp gaze and an air of authority that made even the seasoned chefs pause. She carried a notebook, worn and precise, filled with meticulous notes that hinted at a deep knowledge of culinary mastery. Her presence was daunting yet strangely magnetic. Arthur placed a steadying hand on Lila's shoulder. Stay focused, Lila. You've faced skepticism before. This is just another challenge. Lila nodded, swallowing the knot of fear in her throat. She had learned that skill alone was not enough. Confidence, courage, and intuition were equally vital. This was the moment where all of those lessons would converge. The task was simple in instruction, but monumental in expectation. Create a dish that would define her as a chef, capable of transcending her years. The ingredients were laid out: rare spices, fresh herbs, delicate seafood, and a variety of fruits and grains. The room watched in near silence, the clatter of pots and pans replaced by the quiet hum of anticipation. She began with calm precision, her small hands moving swiftly yet delicately. She combined flavors with intuition, arranged textures with artistry, and infused the dish with creativity that no adult could have predicted. Every motion radiated confidence born from every challenge she had endured. The laughter, the skepticism, the rival chef, the whispered doubts. Yet midway through, disaster struck. A pan slipped from her tiny hands, tipping slightly and spilling a small portion of her carefully prepared ingredients onto the floor. Gasps echoed across the kitchen. Lila froze, heart hammering, fear threatening to undo everything she had built. Arthur stepped closer, whispering firmly, "You are stronger than this, Lila. Trust yourself. You can recover. Keep going." His presence reminded her that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was acting despite it. With careful, deliberate hands, she salvaged the remaining ingredients, adjusting the composition of the dish, transforming the setback into an opportunity for even greater creativity. The rival chef and skeptical staff leaned in, murmuring, astonished at how she adapted so effortlessly under pressure. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the dish was complete. Lila stepped back, chest heaving, eyes bright with determination and hope. The room was silent, every gaze fixed on the small figure who had just faced every doubt and fear imaginable and emerged victorious in spirit, if not yet in judgment. The mysterious woman approached, notebook in hand. She tasted the dish carefully, her expression unreadable at first. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face, subtle but genuine. She turned to the room, her voice calm yet carrying authority. "This is beyond anything I expected. She hasn't just cooked a dish. She has told a story, conveyed emotion, and shown intuition that transcends technique. She is extraordinary." A ripple of awe spread through the room. The rival chef's skeptical frown softened into reluctant admiration. Even the most doubtful staff members were nodding, whispering among themselves. Lila had not only survived the ultimate test, she had redefined what it meant to be a chef in their eyes. Arthur knelt beside her, pride shining in his eyes. "You see, Lila, talent, courage, heart, they all come together, and you have them in abundance." Lila smiled, small yet radiant, knowing that this victory was more than recognition. It was proof to herself that she could rise above every obstacle, every doubt, and every fear. But just as relief settled in, the mysterious woman leaned closer and whispered to Arthur, her voice carrying weight and a hint of urgency. "There's more to her story. Secrets she doesn't yet know, about her family, her origins, and her destiny. If she learns the truth too quickly, it could overwhelm her. We need to prepare her carefully." Arthur's gaze met Lila's, his heart swelling with pride yet shadowed with concern. The battle of the kitchen was won, but the larger journey, the one that would reveal the hidden truths of her life, had only just begun. The kitchen was quiet now, the usual clatter and steam replaced by a hushed reverence. Lila stood at the center, her tiny frame illuminated by the soft glow of the overhead lights. Around her, chefs who had once mocked, doubted, and challenged her now watched with respect, awe, and in some cases, disbelief. She had transformed not just a kitchen, but the hearts of everyone within it. Arthur stood behind her, steady and proud. His hand rested lightly on her shoulder, a reminder of guidance and trust, yet allowing her space to shine independently. The mysterious woman lingered at the edge of the room, notebook closed, her expression unreadable yet tinged with quiet admiration. The day's battle had ended, but the journey The true journey was far from over. Lila looked at her completed plate. The dish she had poured her heart into, adjusted and perfected even in the face of setbacks. She could feel the story it told. The trials, the triumph, the courage, and the resilience all embedded within the flavors, textures, and colors. For the first time, she understood that cooking was more than a skill. It was a language of the soul, a way to communicate what words often could not. The rival chef approached her, once a shadow of doubt and intimidation, now softened by genuine admiration. "I underestimated you," he said quietly, almost humbly. "You've reminded me that talent can come in the smallest packages, but with courage, it can move mountains." Lila's lips curved into a small smile. She had learned that recognition from others was gratifying, but the true victory lay in self-belief. She had faced ridicule, skepticism, and near failure, yet she emerged stronger, more confident, and aware of the power of her own abilities. Arthur knelt beside her, his eyes warm and earnest. "Do you feel it?" he asked softly. "This moment isn't just about proving them wrong. It's about knowing who you are and trusting that no one can take that away from you." Lila nodded, understanding deeply, even at her young age, that this moment marked a transformation. She had discovered her courage, learned to trust her instincts, and realized that setbacks were not the end, but opportunities to grow. She had faced challenges that seemed insurmountable and emerged not just victorious, but stronger and wiser. Yet the sense of accomplishment was tinged with anticipation. The mysterious woman stepped closer, voice gentle but carrying weight. "Lila, there's something you need to know about your family and the legacy of your talent. Soon you'll understand where your gift comes from and why it's so extraordinary. But for now, let this moment settle in. Remember it. It will give you strength for what comes next." The words intrigued Lila, hinting at a future full of revelations, challenges, and adventures yet unknown. She felt a thrill of curiosity, a spark that promised more than she could imagine. Yet she was ready, more prepared than ever to face what lay ahead. As the kitchen slowly returned to its rhythm, with chefs cautiously resuming their stations, Lila stood quietly, observing. She had entered this world small, underestimated, and overlooked. She now left it changed, not just as a child who could cook, but as a young prodigy who had confronted fear, doubt, and judgment with bravery, skill, and heart. Arthur smiled, watching her take in the moment. "This is just the beginning," he said. "The world will see your gift, and you'll face challenges we can't yet imagine. But I know one thing. You're ready." Lila looked around the room one last time, the steam curling upward, the faint scent of spices lingering, the soft murmur of respect and admiration filling the air. She felt a sense of peace and purpose she had never known. For the first time she truly believed in herself, in her gift, and in the limitless possibilities ahead. And as she held her head high, the wooden spoon in her small hands no longer a tool of play, but a symbol of courage and creativity, Lila knew one simple, undeniable truth. She had turned laughter and doubt into something extraordinary. She had created not just a dish, but her own path. Outside the kitchen window, the first hints of evening sunlight shimmered over the city streets, casting a golden glow across the room. It was a quiet promise of tomorrow, full of flavor, challenge, and possibility. And somewhere deep inside, Lila felt it. The world was hers to explore, one dish at a time. Her tiny fingers tightened around the spoon. A small smile formed on her lips. She had faced the world, and she had already begun to change it.